The lecture hall of the Galactic Academy was filled with students from every corner of the galaxy. Bright holographic screens floated in the air, showing colorful diagrams of planets, animals, and dangerous plants. The smell of recycled air mixed with the faint hum of translator devices. Today's topic was hazardous life forms, the most dangerous flora in the known galaxy. Professor Varan, a tall insectoid with 6 thin legs and a shiny black carapace, clicked his mandibles as he tapped the projector. A large image appeared in the center of the room. A small red fruit, spiky and shiny with a long green stem. This, Varan said, his voice echoing through the translators, is one of the most dangerous plants in the galaxy. It comes from a wild planet called Earth. The natives call it a chili pepper. We in xenobiology have classified it as a level 6 biohazard, equivalent to a slow-acting nerve toxin. The entire class gasped. Some of the students, soft-skinned beings from water planets, recoiled at the sight of the fruit. A reptilian student hissed, his frill flaring in alarm. From the very back row, a single human sat quietly. Cadet Marcus slouched in his chair, one leg crossed over the other, his short brown hair messy as usual. He opened a small metal lunchbox on his desk, ignoring the stares around him. Inside were slices of bread, a bottle of water, and a few bright red chili peppers. He picked one up and twirled it between his fingers, smiling to himself. Meanwhile, Professor Varan continued his lecture, unaware of what Marcus was holding. This plant, Varan said, tapping the hologram, contains a chemical known as capsaicin. Even a trace amount can cause severe pain to most carbon-based species. Contact with skin results in burning. Contact with mucous membranes leads to screaming, thrashing, and in many cases, medical intervention. The professor zoomed in on the chemical structure of capsaicin, which glowed dangerously on the screen. If ingested, he added, his antennae twitching, the victim will experience internal burning, tearing of the eyes, and often vomiting. The body interprets the substance as an attack. The students were horrified. A thin, blue-skinned alien covered its eyes with all 4 hands. Another scribbled panicked notes into its datapad. Marcus popped the stem off his pepper and took a bite. The crunch was loud in the quiet room. Nobody noticed. Yet. Professor Varan continued pacing, tapping on his tablet with his claw. Attempts to weaponize capsaicin have been outlawed by most galactic councils, as its pain-inducing properties make it a form of biological torture. He turned back to the class. Now imagine, he said gravely, that this fruit grows in large numbers across Earth, thousands of them. Fields full of them. It is no wonder Earth is considered one of the most hostile biospheres discovered. The class erupted in chatter. A gelatinous student quivered like jelly. Why do the natives not burn their farms? One asked in a panicked tone. Surely they destroy these plants, another said. Varan raised a claw to silence them. It is unclear why the humans have not eradicated the species. Perhaps they have not developed the technology to safely do so. Or perhaps they are resistant to its effects and leave it untouched. In the back, Marcus almost laughed. He quickly swallowed and took another bite of his chili pepper, his lips turning slightly red. He loved days like this. The xenobiology class was his favorite part of the week. The way the aliens looked at Earth as if it were a death world always amused him. To be fair, he thought Earth was kind of dangerous. But to humans, danger was just another Tuesday. Professor Varan turned off the hologram for a moment and said, Let me be clear. Under no circumstance should any of you attempt to interact with this plant without full protective equipment. The last time a researcher touched one with bare appendages, we had to place them in a stasis chamber for 72 hours until the pain subsided. They still cannot taste anything. A shiver went through the room. The students' imaginations filled with images of terrible suffering. Crunch, this time. Several students turned their heads. Marcus froze for a second, then gave them a little wave with his free hand, his mouth still full. Hey, he mumbled cheerfully. The alien students blinked, confused. What was he eating? Professor Varan noticed the movement in the back. Cadet Marcus, he said, narrowing his compound eyes. You seem distracted. Marcus swallowed. Not distracted, Professor. Just having a snack. The professor tilted his head. A snack? What kind? Marcus grinned, holding up the half-eaten chili pepper. This. The room fell silent. Half the class gasped so loudly that the sound echoed off the walls. One student dropped their datapad. Another started muttering a prayer to their ancestors. Professor Varan's antennae stiffened. You are eating one? Marcus nodded. Yeah, they're called chili peppers. Pretty mild ones, though. Back home we grow much hotter ones. Those will make you sweat just by smelling them. A horrified squeak ran through the room. The professor's mandibles clicked rapidly. Cadet Marcus, put that down at once. You are in danger. Marcus shrugged, completely calm. Nah, humans eat these all the time. They're spicy, sure, but that's the fun part. The students whispered in fear and disbelief. Humans chose to eat poison? The bell rang, signaling the end of class. The students filed out, whispering about what they had just seen, some still glancing nervously at Marcus as if he might collapse any second. Marcus packed up his lunchbox, gave the professor a casual salute, and walked out. See you next class, Professor, he said cheerfully. Varan stood frozen at the podium, his mind reeling. The human had eaten a death fruit, and smiled. The corridors of the Galactic Academy buzzed with chatter after the xenobiology class. News traveled faster than light in a building full of nervous alien students. By the time Marcus reached the cafeteria, whispers about the human who ate a death fruit and survived had already spread to 3 other halls. Marcus walked in calmly, carrying his lunchbox. To him, it had been just another class. He had eaten chili peppers since he was a kid. They were tasty, they woke him up, and they made boring lectures more exciting. But when he sat down at a table near the window, he noticed the way everyone stared. A group of small, fur-covered students whispered from across the room. A gelatinous student slid behind a pillar, watching him cautiously. Even the cafeteria droid seemed to hover a bit farther away. Marcus sighed. Great, he muttered. Now they think I'm some kind of monster. Before he could take another bite, Professor Varan entered the cafeteria. His 6 legs clicked against the floor rapidly, a sign of urgency among his species. His antennae twitched as he scanned the room until his compound eyes locked on Marcus. Cadet Marcus, the professor said, striding toward him. You must come with me now. Marcus raised an eyebrow but stood up. Sure? What's the problem? The problem, Varan said, lowering his voice, is that you are apparently immune to one of the most dangerous substances known to galactic science. We must run a full medical scan immediately. Marcus shrugged. Fine, but I told you, I'm not immune. It still burns, it just feels good. The professor made a clicking sound that could only be translated as pure confusion. Feels good? Pain feels good? Marcus grinned. Yup, humans are weird like that. The medical bay, the Academy's medical bay, was a clean white room filled with soft light and humming machines. Medbots floated gently through the air, their sensors glowing. Marcus was asked to lie down on a padded table. He did so casually, folding his hands behind his head as if he were sunbathing. Professor Varan stood beside the chief medic, a tall, plant-like alien with glowing petals for a head. Please check him thoroughly, Varan said. If the toxin is harming him, we must intervene at once. The medic nodded and began the scan. Beams of light passed over Marcus from head to toe. Holographic screens lit up with charts, readings, and chemical maps of his body. After several long minutes, the medic stepped back. Fascinating, they said softly. What is it? Varan asked, his antennae quivering. There is no damage, the medic said. No tissue burns, no internal bleeding, no stress reaction. In fact, his endorphin levels are elevated. He is enjoying himself. The professor turned to Marcus, stunned. You enjoy eating a weaponized neurotoxin? Marcus laughed. Weaponized? It's just food. Back home we put it on everything. Pizza, noodles, soup, you name it. Some people even compete to see who can eat the spiciest peppers without crying. The medic tilted their head. Compete? On purpose? Of course, Marcus said proudly. It's a tradition. We call them chili eating contests. It's fun. The professor staggered back a step, his mandibles clicking rapidly in disbelief. Around them, several medbots stopped in midair, processing this strange revelation. Class reaction. By the next day, the entire class knew what had happened. When Marcus entered the lecture hall, every pair of alien eyes turned toward him. Some students whispered nervously. Others sat as far from him as possible, as if he might suddenly explode. Professor Varan stood at the front of the room, clearly still unsettled. Class, he said, clicking his mandibles. Yesterday's events have forced us to reconsider what we know about human biology. He gestured toward Marcus. This cadet consumed a level 6 biohazard and suffered no harm. His body instead produced pleasure hormones. This defies every safety model we have. Marcus raised a hand casually. For the record, I did feel pain. That's kind of the point. Spicy food hurts, but in a good way. The class broke into shocked murmurs. A reptilian student raised a trembling claw. You choose to suffer? Marcus grinned. Sometimes. It's exciting. Makes life interesting. A tiny avian alien tilted its head. And you give this poison to your children? Marcus shrugged. Well, we start them off with mild ones. It's like a rite of passage. Gasps filled the room. Several students scribbled notes furiously, as if they had just discovered an entirely new level of galactic madness. The demonstration professor Vern sighed. Cadet Marcus, would you be willing to demonstrate? For science? Marcus smiled. Sure. He pulled out another chili pepper from his lunchbox and held it up. This one's a bit hotter than yesterday's. The entire class leaned back in unison. Marcus bit into it. His face turned slightly red and sweat formed on his forehead, but he kept chewing with a grin. See, still alive? The room was silent. One gelatinous student actually fainted, collapsing into a puddle on the floor. Marcus swallowed and set the remaining piece on the desk. Anyone want to try a tiny piece? He asked cheerfully. No one moved. Finally, a brave reptilian student slowly stepped forward. We'll try, they said, their frill shaking nervously. Marcus broke off the tiniest corner of the pepper and handed it over. The reptilian touched it to their tongue. Instantly, they yelped and ran to the water dispenser, spraying mist into their mouth and hissing loudly. The class erupted into panic. Marcus laughed, but he quickly raised his hands.
Okay, I won't make anyone else try.
It's not for everyone. Professor Varan groaned, rubbing his forehead with one claw. Humans are either the most durable species I have ever seen or the most reckless. Marcus winked. Why not both? The turning point after class, several students approached Marcus cautiously. Instead of fear, there was now a spark of curiosity in their eyes. Do humans have other foods like this? The avian asked. Oh, plenty, Marcus said. Garlic, wasabi, horseradish. Some are even stronger than peppers. The reptilian student, now recovered, looked at him with a strange mix of fear and respect. You are not just immune, they said quietly. You are dangerous, Marcus shrugged. Or maybe we just like a little challenge. Professor Varan watched from the doorway, still shaken but secretly fascinated. He realized this single human had just rewritten half of the Academy's safety manuals, and it was only the beginning. 2 days later, the xenobiology lecture hall was transformed into a controlled experiment zone. The usual desks had been moved aside to make space for scanners, sensors, and emergency medbots. Marcus sat on a chair in the center, looking very amused as several researchers prepared the setup. Cadet Marcus, Professor Varan said, pacing with his tablet, today we will carefully measure your species' tolerance to the fruit. His antennae twitched nervously. For science, Marcus grinned. Sounds good, Professor. But you should know, and I brought a few friends today. He opened a small bag on the table, revealing several types of peppers. Some were long and green, others small and wrinkled, and one was so red it almost glowed. The researchers took a step back. Are all of those poisonous? Asked a nervous avian student, their feathers puffed up. Poisonous for you, Marcus said cheerfully. Delicious for me. The test begins. The first test started with a mild pepper. Marcus ate it easily, chatting casually as the scanners recorded everything: heart rate, breathing, temperature, and brain activity. Fascinating, said the chief medic. His pain receptors activate, yet his brain responds by releasing pleasure hormones. The students watched in awe. Then came the second pepper. This one was hotter, and Marcus started to sweat slightly. His face turned red, and he drank a sip of water, but he was still smiling. Any pain? Professor Varan asked. Oh yeah, Marcus said with a grin. It's burning pretty good. But that's what makes it fun. The class whispered among themselves. For them, pain was something to avoid at all costs. But this human seemed to treat it as entertainment. The final pepper. Finally, Marcus picked up the last pepper, the glowing red one. This one, he said, holding it up, is called a ghost pepper. Back home, this is one of the hottest you can eat. Some people cry, some sweat like crazy, and some even need to sit down for a while. The room went silent. "Cadet Marcus," Professor Vernon said carefully. "Are you sure this is safe?" Marcus winked. Only one way to find out. He bit into the pepper. Almost instantly his face turned bright red. His eyes watered, sweat poured down his forehead, and he let out a long breath. "Woo! Yep, that's spicy." The scanners went wild, recording a spike in his heart rate and body temperature. The students panicked. "He's going to collapse," one shouted. "No, look," another said. Marcus sat calmly, though his face was clearly on fire. He took another bite, chewed, and swallowed. The class watched in stunned silence. After a minute, Marcus laughed. "Okay, that one was a challenge, but I'm fine." The medic checked the readings and looked amazed. "No damage," they reported. "His body is perfectly stable." Professor Vernon stared at Marcus, shaking his head slowly. "You are unlike anything I've ever seen." The Academy's reaction word of the experiment spread across the entire Academy. Soon Marcus couldn't walk through the halls without being stopped by curious students. "Is it true you eat fire?" one small aquatic student asked, wide-eyed. "Not fire," Marcus said with a smile. "Just peppers." "But yeah, it feels like fire. Your species is terrifying," said a reptilian student, though they sounded more impressed than afraid. Within a week, the Academy added a new section to the xenobiology curriculum, Human Culinary Hazards. The first line of the new textbook entry read, "Humans are not only immune to capsaicin but actively seek it for pleasure. This behavior is considered unique among known sapient species." Marcus found it hilarious. "Congratulations," he told Professor Vernon. "You just turned my lunch into a science lesson." The brave volunteer one day. After class, the reptilian student who had fainted earlier approached Marcus. "I wish to try again," they said, standing tall. "A very small piece," Marcus smiled. "Respect. Let's start you with a mild one." He cut off a tiny slice of a green pepper and handed it over. The reptilian hesitated, then put it on their tongue. They flinched, but this time they didn't run away. Instead, they blinked rapidly, drank some water, and nodded. "It burns," they said slowly. "But it is not as bad as I feared." Marcus grinned. "See, not so scary once you get used to it." Other students began to gather around, curious. Soon a few brave volunteers tried very tiny pieces under Marcus's supervision. Most found it unbearable, but some were intrigued by the strange, tingling sensation. For the first time, the class wasn't just afraid of the death fruit. They were curious, even respectful. A new understanding, at the end of the semester. Professor Vernon called Marcus to the front of the class. "Cadet Marcus," he said formally, "you have given this academy a new understanding of human biology. More importantly, you have shown us that pain, for your species, is not always something to fear. Sometimes, it is something to embrace." The students tapped their claws, wings, and appendages against their desks, the galactic equivalent of applause. Marcus smiled, feeling oddly proud. "Glad I could help, Professor. Next semester, maybe I can teach you all about coffee." "Coffee?" Fran asked warily. "What is coffee?" Marcus grinned mischievously. "Oh, just another Earth thing that would probably send most of you to the med bay. But it makes mornings a lot more fun." The class groaned in disbelief, but several students looked excited. The alien who had tried the pepper raised their claw. "I will try this coffee next," they said. Marcus laughed. "One step at a time. Trust me, you'll need it during finals week." Closing scene that night, Marcus sat outside on the Academy's observation deck, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a world full of storms, predators, and food that made you sweat and cry. And humans loved every bit of it. He smiled to himself. The galaxy might see humans as reckless or strange, but that was fine, because if a little pain could scare half the galaxy, Marcus thought, wait until they find out about hot wings. He bit into another pepper and leaned back, enjoying the burn.